Hi, it's Matthew Stasica, and I'm polishing English in business with Michał Matychniak, who is English mentor at PLA School. We've talked about crying during lessons, unconventional approaches to teaching, English and marketing industry, hesitancy of founders and HR departments concerning language training, and so on. Are you ready? Let's delve into this. Hello, Michael. Tell me something about you that I don't really know.
Hi, thanks for having me. Well, one thing that you may not know about me, and which is a bit surprising perhaps, is that one time a student of mine cried during my lesson, and it was a difficult situation to handle.
Was it our student, like from PLA, or it was some private?
Not our student. I had a private student, yeah. It was a while ago, and it sounds a little bit horrifying, but it wasn't due to my influence. I think it was just a difficult day for her. But handling that situation as a teacher was very interesting.
So how did you handle it?
I think I went into panic mode for a little bit, and I just tried to distract her from all those negative emotions. And yeah, but it was a little bit awkward because, like, as you can imagine, when somebody starts crying in your presence, you have to say something that will make them feel better. And then my mind kind of went empty. So I tried to focus on the lesson itself, and it's kind of grotesque when somebody is crying and you try to teach them something. It's a little bit awkward.
Oh yeah, it is. What was her reaction afterwards, like, the next week?
I think she kind of appreciated that I kept my cool and I didn't freak out with her. And I think maybe she was a little bit embarrassed about crying as well. But like, I didn't try to blame her or anything like that. Sometimes we just have a tough day, and it could happen to anyone. And I think when you work with people, you have to be ready for anything, really, all kinds of emotions. So I think it was a good lesson for me as well in how to handle situations like that.
Yeah, I feel you. All right. Listen, you are a linguist and you delve deep into linguistics, methodology, and you've recently started an interesting challenge on reading books. Can you elaborate on that?
Oh yeah, the 100 books in 1 year challenge. It is something which I decided to do very spontaneously. Like at the end of last year, I was like, let's do something crazy for 2024. And yes, my idea of doing something crazy is to read 100 books, which I know may not be crazy by other people's standards, but I did decide to do that, and I started a blog to kind of document this whole process and to make this challenge public. Because I feel like if you make it public, then you have to do it, right? You're forced to kind of stick to it and actually do it. So now I feel this constant pressure to keep reading, and my life is just sleeping, working, reading, and eating, and rinse and repeat.
All right, nice. I mean, it is crazy from some perspectives. Meaning, I don't know if I have read 100 books in my entire life. So, whoa. Well, I'm lazy again. So, yeah. Whoa. Okay. And what is gonna be the outcome of that challenge? What do you forecast? Like, what do you want it to be?
I really hope that reading such large quantities of text might make some changes to my linguistic abilities and hopefully make me more eloquent, more well-spoken, and perhaps it will actually impact my language skills in some visible way. I feel like when you learn a language and you've spent like a lot of years developing your language skills, at some point it becomes very difficult to see any further progress. So you have to challenge yourself to, push yourself beyond your limits and see if there is anything that you can do to move even further with your skills. And I feel like reading 100 books may be something like that, something that will actually push me to gain more knowledge, to develop my skills, and to see if there is any more progress that I can make. So hopefully by the end of the year, my understanding of this language and my skill at using this language will be better than ever before.
Okay, well, that's amazing, because that means you are becoming better and better teacher, better employee. So nice.
When you are a language teacher, it's like you have to constantly keep working on your knowledge base, because if you stop moving forward, you will start moving backwards. So you have to make sure that you are not losing what you have. It's kind of like a muscle, right? If you don't keep exercising it, then you will start losing it. And also the fact that I speak on a daily basis, I speak mostly with people whose level is lower than mine, which means that I'm at a risk of kind of losing my skills.
Yeah, that's my thing. I mean, my problem, I totally regressed. I think. I don't know, because I haven't been measuring it properly. But at PLA School we do. So tell me about PLA and how do you teach?
So the approach that we have, I think, is a very, it is quite different from most language schools, and it is very challenging for students and teachers alike. We do focus a lot in our lessons. We do focus a lot on putting English into practice, and a lot of the things that we do are based around stuff that students create. So texts written by our students, or conversation which is led by our students. So it is very much focused on encouraging the students to speak and write and just use this language as much as possible, which is a great way to encourage your student to kind of leave their comfort zone, and something which a lot of teachers, a lot of language schools are kind of afraid of doing, because it is much easier, much more comfortable to follow a textbook or do some exercises from a textbook instead of trying to create something original and trying to use this language in a natural, practical way.
Okay, so how would you comment on skill honing versus knowledge gathering in this context of what we do at PLA?
Well, I feel like knowledge is something that a lot of our students already have, actually, and this linguistic knowledge, and also knowledge of their own field, of their own industry. So what we do is we try to kind of encourage them to use that knowledge and to kind of become more comfortable speaking about the topics related to their job and so on. So I think that because we have such a practical approach, it is more about developing what is already there. It is not exactly about just giving our students like a base, a knowledge base that they have to remember and memorize and just like that, right? So it's more about kind of putting it into practice. So I think that it's a great way to teach business professionals, because typically they do know what they are talking about. They do have this theoretical background of their own field, and sometimes even their vocabulary related to their field is quite rich. But maybe they just need this little push to start developing their conversation skills or writing skills, and so on.
All right, right. So who do you teach? Like which industries, which domains, which areas? And like you could tell us what is the main area, but also maybe there are some students who, well, need to develop a very specific niche.
So definitely a lot of my students are from marketing, and that is probably the biggest kind of area that I'm focused on right now. And there are people from other business-related topics, and just in general, a lot of people who have some, like I said, very kind of specific niche that we have to focus on. For example, I have one student with whom we talk about wine and the wine industry, and we talk about, like everything related to the production and distribution of wine, which is a very interesting topic. But it's also incredibly specialized, and it requires a lot of preparation on my part, on the student's part. So it's a very cool challenge and very kind of original way to conduct classes. Or also a student who works in the coffee industry, and we also talk about the production and distribution and everything related to coffee, which is, once again, an opportunity for me to learn something as well as for the student, because when you enter such a specialized area, you have to sort of be very focused on the details, and you realize quickly that your language skills have to be combined with specialized knowledge from this field, because otherwise it's just not enough. And even students who work in, for example, project management or product management, that's another area where you are at the same time doing something very specific, but also general, in the sense that those students cooperate with people from so many different areas that you have to develop your knowledge in many different directions. And that's, again, another challenge, because it's so time consuming sometimes, but it kind of gives you a new perspective on certain things. And I feel like that's a great kind of advantage of working with business people, that you can learn so much from them and with them.
Yeah. So do you think that it actually impacted your life, that some lessons can be huge value, that there is this additional value for both of you, like not always for the student, but it could also be some additional value to you and not on this linguistical platform?
For sure, I can see a lot of practical benefits in my own life from having lessons with my students. For example, speaking of coffee, when I work with people who are specialists in this kind of industry, I can learn so much about the things that they deal with. So in the case of coffee, I've become kind of a coffee freak ever since I started having lessons with that students. And now I'm being incredibly pretentious and irritating to everyone around me because I'm very selective about what kind of coffee I drink. But I still see that as a benefit. And I see that as a benefit in the sense of just having a deeper understanding of the world around me. And I feel like for someone who likes to learn, just in general likes to learn, working as a language teacher can be incredibly satisfying, because you have to, like I said before, you just have to keep developing your knowledge of so many different areas. And also, it's just really fun to talk with people who are passionate about something.
Yeah.
So even if I personally don't care about some specific topic, it's still really fun to just have a conversation with someone who can explain all the details and kind of show me the behind the scenes of a certain industry, for example. So I think that it just makes my job that much more fun, despite requiring me to do a lot of research and preparation. It's still just a great experience overall.
Yeah, definitely. And I remember my own lessons, because I conducted a couple of English lessons with Jarek, whom you mentioned, in this context of winemaking and wine tasting. He's a master of sommelier right now, I think, if I remember correctly, the title, which is huge, which is fucking huge. And his level of inspiration in the area was like I'm just waiting for this moment in my life when I'm like, okay, this wine is so tasty. Yes, let's drink
Yeah.
this. Or what the fuck is this shit? Get rid of it. Like I want to be better at it. Like taste, like really taste what I'm drinking or what I'm eating. Like be open to those sensations and to be able to actually feel them or analyze them. So that's the difficult part, I think. But someday, definitely, it's inspiring, it's interesting, and yeah. But I have some issues with coffee tasting, for example. I mean, I do drip or those alternative ways of brewing the the coffee, and I'm not that good at those nuances. And if I read that I have to feel something, then okay. But if you give me some Waseba or Chibo and you tell me it's some epic blend, might be that I'll say, yeah, particular. So
Yeah. To be fair, I would probably have the same reaction, so I'm not gonna claim to be an expert just yet. But it's about the journey, not the destination, right? So just enjoy the
true.
process of learning. But I agree with what you said that it's just nice to kind of make progress in this and to see your own expertise develop and kind of see that there is something more to the world, right? For example, the world of coffee that, yes, you can drink just this kind of Chibo family or whatever, and you can be happy with that. But if you want, you can go deeper and deeper and just kind of enter this rabbit hole and keep exploring
Yeah,
for years. And that's the great thing. It's like a never-ending story, basically.
true. So let's explore, but some other subject. Languages and marketing. Have you noticed any trends, any shifts in the marketing industry? Um, like regarding the value placed on those language competences, the language skills, and also keeping in mind the cultural difference, because language comes with culture and we tend to forget that, which is
Mm.
wrong.
Yeah, we can definitely never separate linguistic skills from cultural understanding. And that is something which I think, again, a lot of teachers and language schools forget about as well. And regarding marketing, I think it's impossible to talk about this without mentioning what's been happening over the last 4 years after the pandemic started. There's been a huge kind of shift to working online, but at the same time, a shift to expanding into foreign markets, which online work has only kind of facilitated because right now, truly more things can happen online than ever before. And because of that, marketing agencies, marketing companies, and companies who are trying to reach new markets, expand their market range, they are trying to enter those foreign markets. So I think that for marketing agencies, being able to use language skills in a practical way to create campaigns or to help specific companies, specific clients kind of target this foreign client, that is something which is incredibly important. However, as you mentioned, cultural understanding, right? That is something that is absolutely necessary in this context because just knowing the language is not enough to know how to influence a foreign market, right? You have to know how to, maybe that word sounds a bit shady, but how to manipulate foreign clients to buy your product, right? And to do that, you need not only a great understanding of their language, but also a great understanding of their cultural approach, the personality that their country has, and the general feel for their culture, which is something that language gives you access to, but something that you still have to explore on your own. And that's sort of a unique challenge for marketers, I think, because we are born and we live, at least most of us, in one country and one specific culture. And a lot of people who work in the marketing industry might see everything through the lens of their own culture, right? So opening yourself up to a different culture is something that is incredibly important. And language allows you to do that, like I said, but still you have to kind of push yourself a little bit in order to really understand a different culture.
So, in your opinion, how important is that C-levels and managers and founders, even if they are not fluent at given language, that they should understand that the languages are very important, like they have to have this broad understanding of the cultural competences, those soft skills.
Yeah, this is something which is really key, because as you said, even if someone like a manager, someone at C-level is not themselves fluent in a language, they still need to understand the importance of this cultural element and linguistic element in order to understand which direction their company should move in, and also understand the unique kind of challenges that come from that. Because if they don't have an understanding of this linguistic cultural factor, then they may have trouble in kind of effectively supporting their own employees in facing those challenges. And I think that they should also appreciate the importance of doing something like English lessons for their employees, right? So that they can really show to their employees that language skills matter, but also support their development in a practical way and show that they do care about those language skills, and that those language skills are an actual, real, important, practical element of the job of a marketer, not something that's, of less importance.
So what would be your advice to those managers, founders, whoever, who feel hesitant to invest in language courses?
Don't feel hesitant and just do it. Right? That's the main advice. Exactly. Just kind of believe in the purpose of learning a language and kind of believe that it makes sense to invest in that. But in all seriousness, I feel like they should just focus on treating language development of their employees as a real investment, something that has to bring some real practical value to the company, and use that approach to find the best language school, the best teachers, the best possible way to provide their employees with those English lessons. Because I feel like 90% of companies who offer language lessons as a benefit, they don't really treat that as a real investment in their employees. They only treat that as some peripheral kind of thing that may or may not encourage someone to apply to get a job at that company. So if you want those language lessons not to be wasted, right, then you should find something that will allow your employees to truly benefit from them. So starting with the right language school, starting with the right teachers, that's the first step that you have to consider. You have to put a lot of thought into choosing the right place, because if you choose the wrong place, then nothing else matters, right? Because that's the first important thing that has to happen, finding the right school, the right teacher.
Just a couple of minutes ago, I finished my episode with Lech Guzowski, who is a multinational player, and outside there, foreign markets, foreign companies start to understand and realize that actually HR should be involved in company strategy construction, or describing it to the other employees and things like that, because HR has this very narrow gap to fit in. They have a budget and they have some fucking KPIs, which is wrong because there are things that are so delicate and soft and blurry that you can't really KPI it. And that's a problem we have in Poland, I think. We do not see this yet. When you speak to an HR specialist or head of HR, they know fucking everything. They are the best. They have some needs I need to fit in budget and I want a benefit. It has to be cheap. And they do not have this kind of long-term vision because they were never presented of this long-term vision from the perspective of CEO, from the founders. And I think that's a huge problem because HRs, for example, in our industry, in our business, they don't really know anything about linguistics. They don't really know anything about communication, communicating to other cultures, internationalization, selling to foreign markets in different languages. They know shit about it. So they don't really know what to expect of schools, of teachers, of the other specialists. I think HR should be open-minded and know that they might need to educate themselves in some areas, and that's problematic. That's what I see right now in the market generally in Poland. I know I'm talking too much, but that seemed right here in this context we've delved into.
Yeah.
That there are so many problems.
I feel like I agree that maybe the problem is having trust in the expertise of other people. And for example,
from other companies, right?
Yeah.
From outside.
Just being able to trust that they know what they're doing, basically, right? And kind of also being open-minded to the fact that sometimes you, as you said, for example, if you don't have this knowledge about linguistics or language learning, language teaching, then maybe you have to take this leap of faith and just kind of understand that if you trust people who are experts on this, then your company might really benefit from that. Of course, I do understand that from HR perspective, it can seem a little bit risky. Obviously, you are investing money, you're investing your time, you're kind of trusting that those people that you are hiring will take good care of your employees. But if you want to have English lessons, for example, as a benefit, you have to do that anyway. So you might as well really trust the people that you are working with. Perhaps people in our country are a little bit skeptical of this because we have negative experiences with language classes in school. And we think that, we are kind of aware of the fact that language education in Poland has not been extremely successful. And therefore, we are a little bit afraid of going to language schools with our employees. But at the same time, I think that we have to understand that this industry is quite big. There is a lot of choices, there is a lot of options. And if you really try, and if you use the right criteria, then you can find someone, I believe, you can find someone who will really help you and not fuck up like most public school teachers, which I'm sad to say, but unfortunately, those negative experiences, I think a lot of people can relate to that. Our public school teaching has disappointed a lot of us, I think.
Yeah, obviously. But there's a paradox in it. Like, we have extensive experience with this traditional way of teaching languages, and we know that it doesn't work. We can see that even people with great grades are fucking stiff as a traffic light when some tourist approaches and asks for direction. So we have this experience, and HR specialists and people who organize courses and trainings in companies, they do have those experiences too. So they can relate to that and compare. And how is it possible that we still delve into the same system, into the same principles that, they differ only in who organizes the training. Here's the system, and there is private company who does almost everything the same way as the system does. So what the fuck? Are we blind, or maybe there isn't any possibility in the market?
Yeah, I think that we are so kind of cynical and jaded about our language education that maybe we just give up before we even try, right? And also, let's be honest, a lot of the language teaching industry, even private language teaching, is no better than our public education. So you have to be really careful. Like I said, having the right criteria of choice can help you. But as we mentioned before, HR may be a little bit kind of afraid of trusting experts, because how do you find an expert, right? And how can you know that someone really is an expert when it comes to language or language teaching?
Yeah, exactly. How do you come up with those criteria?
That's right.
In the first place, right?
That's the right question, right? And I feel like we can try to find someone who has this linguistic education. Perhaps that's one thing that can help us. I do not believe personally that you have to have linguistic education to be a language teacher. I don't think that's necessarily how this works. But having an interest in linguistics and kind of showing that you are somehow connected with this world of language, that's something that's really important. Because if you have someone as a teacher, someone who is completely disinterested in language itself, then I think you're setting yourself up for failure, because you need someone who is really passionate about this, right? Not someone who necessarily is a linguistic professional or has a degree in language studies or something like that, but someone who knows what they are talking about. That's the first thing, right? Someone who has both practical knowledge and a little bit of this theoretical understanding of language itself. That to me is a valuable language teacher. That's why native speakers are not necessarily the best language teachers, because even though they have native level understanding and use of the language itself, they often lack this meta-linguistic awareness, right? And they are not the best at explaining stuff, or they're not the best at organizing a language course. So I think that you have to have the best of both worlds, right? Theoretical stuff and practical stuff as well.
Yeah, exactly. Like people who can delve deep into those structures and what is what, but they are not solely researchers. Because my understanding of traditional way right now is that we have this system of language acquisition that is based on some perspective of the researchers, people who are very good, who are fucking best at researching and like they are good at translating language into mathematics. But again, in real life, we do not use this linguistic mathematics. So who is the greatest teacher? I think it's the person who knows the language of the researchers, but knows how to translate it into practical perspective and knows how to translate it into communication that is simple and understandable for just usual normal person. So yeah, this is my picture in my head.
Yeah.
Any thoughts?
Right. So you need someone who can take this huge body of knowledge connected with language and linguistics and can kind of distill it down to the most useful insights, the most practical things. And I think personally, I also find it to be one of the most exciting parts of this job. As you can see behind me, I have a collection of linguistic books and stuff like that, which I would never use directly with my students because I would probably bore them to death if I tried to do that. But having this awareness of linguistic structure and trying to take this theoretical knowledge and apply it during my classes, that's something that I really enjoy. And I think that it makes my job more exciting because, you know, if you spend the whole week teaching the present simple or the present continuous or something like that, then you are looking for something new and you are looking for some original insights, let's say. So language study, linguistics, can provide you with that insight. And you can experiment a little bit with applying different theoretical approaches in a practical way. So that's also very cool, I think.
Yeah. All right. So, how did it all started with you? Like, why you decided to, like reach deeper into the structures and linguistics and like be interested in all that?
That's a tough question, actually, because I feel like when I think about it, I feel like I've always had this fascination with language. And I remember even now, when I was in primary school, someone asked me one time who I want to be when I grow up. And I said that I would like to be an English teacher, perhaps. And here I am. So I think that it's pretty funny that I didn't change my mind along the way.
Yeah.
So I think what truly attracted me to linguistics is the fact that very often language seems quite random to people, and language is seen as this kind of cultural construct, which is totally unpredictable, and you just have to learn it, memorize it. But linguistics often says no. Language has some logic to it, some structure, and trying to describe that structure is something which to me is really exciting because I'm the kind of person who likes to understand systems of knowledge and who likes to understand the, like I said, logic behind something. So when I see a certain linguistic structure, for example, and it seems like it's some kind of an exception to a rule, then the linguist in me often asks the question, but is it really an exception or is there a reason why it's like that, right? And I feel like linguistics is exciting because it helps you to understand the kind of fundamental forces that shape language and shape language use. So that's the truly fascinating thing about it. It shows you that language is such an incredibly deep phenomenon with so many avenues that you can discover and explore. And that is often surprising to people, I think, because people think that language is just words and sentences. But when you really get into it, then you discover how much more there is to learn, just like with coffee. Right? You think that coffee is just some beans that you grind up and you make a nice little beverage. But the more you read about it, the more you realize that it's a whole world of knowledge that you were not aware of. And with language, it's exactly the same.
Yeah. Nice comparison. And language is going to definitely touch your thoughts, your emotions, sensations. So there are so many dots to connect that simply putting language into some, couple of rules and words is just stupid. Just as assessing the language competences with a letter and one number, eventually one number point, another number. This is so inaccurate, but let's leave it for some other conversation. Anyways, I've committed a nice article on that a couple days ago. It's been published on LinkedIn. If I remember, I'm gonna share the link. And right now, I would like you to share something with the audience, maybe some anecdotes, some insights, some strange, nice, interesting stories or success stories of our clients at PLA School.
Yeah, when I think about our clients, I immediately think about people from marketing that we work with, and like people who take part in some kind of technological conventions or attend conferences in English, and people who have to, for example, present something during those conferences, right? And I think that very often this is the place where their language skills are put to test, and they have to show that they know what they're doing and what they're saying. So I think recently there was some technological convention in Lisbon, I suppose, that some of our students attended.
Web Summit.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. And I think that was a great opportunity for them also to do some networking. And as that company wanted to reach foreign clients, expand a little bit beyond the Polish market, then events like that are kind of crucial, right? So it was a very nice thing to hear that overall it was a success and that all the presentations went well, and it was in general quite a productive time for them.
Yeah, definitely. Presenting something in front of other specialists internationally during the biggest event in Europe, or almost biggest. I don't know. Don't remember. Don't have intel. But this is huge. This is huge. And look at how many things you need to handle, like language, communication, but also stress and your own body, your own profile. You want to adjust to the people who are going to listen to you, and you have some objectives. You want things to be achieved. So everything needs to be aligned. And there are so many platforms and domains and areas you need to somehow get together, put together. Not that easy. And if you do easy things like filling those easy exercises and answering ABCD or true false, I don't think it's gonna work.
That's right. Yeah, so there is this practical approach that can really prepare you for this kind of situation, and that's the only approach that can prepare you for that. And you mentioned stress, for example. I really believe that stress is the number one factor that stops our students from achieving success. And I think that's another thing that language teachers and language schools should focus a lot on, because it's really kind of surprising how often I have students whose language level is really high and they can say a lot on many different topics, but they just don't believe in their own skills enough to be able to speak fluently. And I often find myself quite astonished that there is a person whose level is quite high, as I said, who is very confident or seems very confident in their language skills, but at the same time, they still feel this high level of stress, and they feel like this stress is the only thing that's stopping them from using this language in practical business situations. So I think that it's not just language, it's also this psychological barrier that you have to break through.
Mm-hmm. All right. And do you think people from marketing are open to those unconventional ways of language acquisition that are contrarian to what's traditional? Because we mentioned this traditional school that it doesn't really work and HR is stuck in this traditional way, and we should educate them and they should be open-minded. But what do you think about this very industry, marketing? Do they feel like trying new things? Yeah, what do you think of it?
Marketing professionals are probably the best target for any kind of unorthodox approach to language teaching. I feel like those are people who are incredibly open-minded, very dynamic, very proactive. So I feel really like this is the industry where people thrive on excitement, novelty, and you really have to, not only is it possible to use some kind of novel approaches to language teaching, but I think it's also necessary. I think that marketing people are, they need a lot of stimulation. I think that's the thing that is really important for them. They are kind of like little children sometimes who get bored after 5 minutes of doing the same thing, which I think is a very positive aspect of working with them because, they are really open to experiments. They are open to something weird, something new, something different. And they are not afraid to tell you what they want. And they're not afraid to tell you that they want more. So as intimidating as it can be sometimes, because as a teacher, for example, you really have to do your best to satisfy them. And sometimes it's quite a challenge to know exactly what you should do to give them the best kind of service possible. But I think that, again, it makes my job a little bit more lively and a little bit more exciting because those people from marketing are really not afraid of a challenge. I think that's if I had to characterize them in one word, I would say ambitious. So when it comes to language learning, it's exactly the same. I think that they want to push the boundaries. They want to kind of think outside the box, that kind of thing. So I think that it's at the same time the most fun aspect of working with them, but also, like I said, the biggest challenge because you have to push yourself as a teacher, as a tutor, to be as creative as possible.
All right. Yeah, can relate to that, definitely. Are there any other challenges?
Maybe from my point of view, I would say becoming familiar with this theoretical aspect of marketing, right? Like, because I'm a language expert, I'm a linguist, but I am not necessarily a marketing expert, which means that there is a certain kind of conflict between the students' expectations and what I can provide them with. I cannot be expected to become a marketing expert overnight. And that is a unique sort of challenge because I have to have enough understanding of this field to know what's going on and to ask my students the right questions. But at the same time, I think it's kind of a very reciprocal thing where they learn English from me and I learn marketing from them, right? So this is more like a partnership sometimes than just me being the teacher and then being the students. So that's a little bit uncomfortable, I think, for me as a teacher as well. Sometimes I have to confront my own ignorance of certain topics, and I have to be unafraid to admit that I don't know something. But at the same time, be open to learning it, be open to catching up with my students, and be open to just kind of feel comfortable with this lack of knowledge and create a space where we can both learn something from each other. That's quite difficult. I feel like for a lot of people, admitting their own ignorance is really unpleasant, right? So I think that you have to feel very secure with yourself in order to do that.
All right. Be confident. Be confident of what you're doing, right? Yeah. It can be tough sometimes because obviously everybody would like their time to be as full of quality and full of new knowledge as possible. But, it's actually probably impossible to have marketing specialist teach a language. Like, if you're a marketing specialist, then you are not really sending your CV over to some language school, but you are rather happier working in your area of expertise, like if you're a specialist in marketing, then you are totally going to work in an agency and not in a school. So yeah, it can be tough sometimes to maybe educate clients. I don't know. Yeah, but that's problematic aspect. Yeah. I feel you. Yeah.
It does make life harder. And on more than one occasion, I, spent like an hour preparing a really cool lesson and thinking, wow, that's going to be so nice for my students. And then at the lesson, I hear that for them, this is all obvious and nothing new and nothing original. And then you feel this sort of disappointment and a little bit of embarrassment as well, let's be honest. But at the same time, it just shows you how important it is to look at things from their perspective as well. I think that you have to empathize with them and think about how they see things and kind of imagine, look through the world kind of through their eyes, imagine what they want to know, what they don't know, and what they are interested in. So I think this is a challenge of empathy as well, in a way, kind of putting yourself in someone else's shoes, which is very important for a teacher, of course, because we work with people. Yeah. So you don't really have a choice with that. You have to understand their perspective before imposing your own perspective on them.
But also maintaining proper communication would be very important here. I think this is how we educate our students. They have this introductory part and they need to do it thoroughly and really understand the other system of acquiring languages, and they need to understand that they need to communicate what's new to them, what they already know, and this cooperation might be crucial, I think. Like you already mentioned that it's very mutual. You learn something new and you also can teach something new, but we are teaching language, not the marketing tricks and stuff, right? So it might be important to communicate clearly with students, with companies. The companies should also be aware of what a school can do and what it cannot. Yeah. All right. And thus, what do you think, how the methods, the trainings can be tailored to meet the specific needs? Because we are not an agency working in marketing internationally, so we don't really have insights and access to the fresh knowledge from abroad and stuff. So how do we tailor the method for those unique needs of marketing specialists?
Yeah, you're right that we don't have like a day-to-day access to how a marketing agency works, for example. So that's one kind of bottleneck, one barrier to creating the right sort of language course. I think that the first step in tailoring the course to the students' needs is, of course, to do some research on the company itself, to understand the company, to understand what they do, and to kind of understand their place on the market. That's something that we can do. Even doing something as simple as visiting their website and kind of just checking it thoroughly through and seeing what they write about, what kind of services they provide, what kind of people work there. I feel like that's it. That's the kind of basis that you need. So you do a little bit of stalking, basically, but totally legal and above board. And then I think when you meet with the students themselves, the first thing I always do is ask them what they expect from me. I think that's the very fundamental question, because as I said before, you cannot impose your own vision before you understand the student's vision. And very often people from marketing are very confident, open-minded, like I said before. So I think that most of the time they will let you know what they want to do with you. And then you mentioned communication, for example, then you have to sort of reach a certain kind of compromise with them as well about what you think they should do, what they think you should do, and what you can do together to really make progress with this language, right? Because sometimes students have certain expectations that are not exactly realistic, or they want to do certain things, but they have to do other things first, right? Like they want to run before they can walk, that kind of situation. So yeah, understanding their needs is crucial here as well. And the last step for me is always doing further research, kind of becoming aware of this area, the field that they work in, asking them also for certain resources. Like, for example, if I have students who work in marketing, I will ask them about their favorite websites, magazines related to marketing, newsletters, stuff like that. And it doesn't mean that I force myself to spend like hours and hours just doing research, but more like looking for sources of inspiration regarding their field, right? So that I know, at least I have this surface level knowledge of what's happening in their field recently and what kind of topics are current, up to date, what kind of topics we can talk about. And then I use that as a basis for creating lessons, right? And then, of course, I get feedback from my students and see if they like what we're doing or not. And I always try to kind of, adjust how I do my lessons according to their needs. But again, keeping in mind that sometimes a teacher can know better than you what's best for you at a given moment, right? So this compromise is still very important here.
Mm-hmm. All right, fair enough. Fuck-ups, do you have any?
My own professional fuck-ups. Well, I feel like for sure the answer is yes, because who doesn't, right? I'm trying to think of some specific situation. I think one time I had a very embarrassing lesson with one of my students because we were talking about marketing, I think, and the whole lesson we were talking about a specific term, and I don't think I remember what this term was, but clearly I didn't have the right understanding of what we were talking about, and I thought we were talking about something entirely different. So the whole lesson was basically two people having a conversation about two different things and kind of missing each other's message the whole time. And I think we didn't realize that we were talking about two different things until the very end of the lesson. And we had a good laugh about it, but still I felt incredibly embarrassed about that. And like, I rarely consider dropping a client, but I think that was one of those moments when I was like, I can never talk to that person again. This is too embarrassing. So from that moment on, I always make sure to double check every term, every new expression or something, because I know that I don't want to have this kind of misunderstanding ever again. Yeah.
All right. When was that?
Well, I don't want to, identify too much information about the situation, but
Okay.
it was sometime like last year in June, I think. So a long time ago, really long time ago. And it was kind of at the beginning of my journey with marketing people specifically, right? Like I was still kind of familiarizing myself with the field. Not that it's any justification for this kind of fuck up. I feel like it's still really silly that it happened. But yeah, it was kind of a lesson for me on what I should avoid doing.
Intriguing. All right. Yeah. So, with that story, we're gonna end this episode. And to summarize, we would like you to feel free to commit mistakes because they can happen even when the best of the best are speaking, right? Which is Michael, who knows English pretty well, as you can hear. I love his accent. I think you do too. So that would be all. Michael, do you have anything to add?
I'm just gonna say that I agree. Make mistakes all you want. The more mistakes you make, the more clients I can have. People should be free, completely free to make mistakes. But also remember that if you feel like those mistakes are bothering you, come to me. I will help you out and we can learn together. So yeah, thank you for having me on your podcast.
Thank you very much for your time. Thank you, dear audience, for your time and attention. And I hope that there were some useful things, useful information. If you feel like you would like to delve deeper into some aspects, some subjects, to ask me some questions, feel free. Cheers.